Minecraft Realms has a lot of minigames, and I know this because I played every single one of them. If you've ever looked at this list and thought, what the heck is Spectral Zone? Or if you just want to know what minigames are out there, then this video is for you. Just bear in mind the list of minigames is constantly changing, so some of these might get taken down and new ones might get added at any point. I'm going to start by focusing on games that are exclusively single player. So without further ado, let's jump in. So as the name would suggest, this is a puzzle with squares. You just have to push them around, get them to the exit. This is the classic Minesweeper game from like Windows XP or whatever, but in 3D. This one, you control Jerry down here, and you have to dodge cars and oil slicks, like I just didn't manage to do there. This next one's kind of a programming game, so you set a load of instructions up, and then this cube has to follow the instructions to get to the exit. This one's your classic plumbing game. You rotate the pipes, make the water flow. In this one you have to pull levers to get the sheep into their corresponding compartments, and it gets pretty hectic. This one's not strictly single player, but it's just a bunch of puzzles that you solve using redstone components. This next category is for games that are primarily focused around running and jumping. So you go through a portal, it takes you to a parkour challenge themed around a particular biome. This one, you're running away from an army of creepers and you've got to dodge all these obstacles. This is an infinite parkour challenge that gets randomly generated as you run. As you can see, I'm really good at it. Similar to Biome Run 2, it's a bunch of different kind of biome themed parkour courses. This one, again similar to Creeper Run, but you're being chased by a giant phantom. In this game you get points for walking over different ores, but the ground disappears from under you, so you can't walk in the same spot twice. This is an infinite parkour challenge, which is themed around a sky desert. This is an interesting one, which I'll let past me describe.
You have to place the TNT on the walls to like wall jump.
How did you do that though? This is ridiculously hard.
I don't know if you could call this parkour, but you have to just not fall off for as long as possible. Next up, here are some old school minigames. Some of them may look familiar. You're exploring a maze, trying to get as many points as possible. This is kind of like Guitar Hero, but with more Google Chrome logo. This is like Frogger, you have to not get run over. This is like 3D Snake. I only played it single player, but I think it could be a lot of fun multiplayer. This is kind of like a turn-based Bejeweled. These games are typically a bit more, well, strategic. This is like chess, but you have to learn a whole new set of rules and it's a little bit glitchy. This is kind of like an RTS game where you control a swarm of bees and you have to attack other people's hives. This is like Settlers of Catan meets Risk. It's complicated. This game is kind of a masterpiece. It's a tower defense game where you can build and upgrade your towers to fend off the invading minecarts. This category is about getting to the end fast. This is a time trial in a hot air balloon. There is a multiplayer battle mode, but right now it's broken. In this game, you are riding a bee around a racetrack. This is like a wacky kind of boat race with all sorts of obstacles and stuff like that. In this one, you're just straight up racing on your feet, and you can even race against AI zombies. In this one, you're racing to the bottom as quickly as possible before you get consumed by magma. This next category is for games where you have one player or one team that is hunting another. Thieves have to steal comically large items from a museum, while guards have to try and stop them by hitting them. This one's very similar to the last one, but you can also look through the security cameras, which is pretty cool. In this game, the hiders have to survive for a certain amount of time, and the hunters have various abilities that they can use against them. This is a fun little game. So the hunters are snowmen, and the hiders are running away from the snowmen. And I'll be honest, it's pretty terrifying when a snowman just comes up the stairs to get you like this. In this one, one team has to run all the way around the platform and the other team has to stop them. But the hunter has this explosive crossbow which is kind of OP. This one has an interesting twist where if you're one of the runners, only your feet are visible. So you have to kind of try and be stealthy to escape from the hunters. This is tag, so every time you catch the other person, you then become the runner and they have to chase after you. This one, very similar premise. It's tag, but it's just very fast paced and fun. These next games are all based on kind of traditional tabletop games. So first off we have Pictionary, or if you prefer, it's basically Microsoft Paint. This one's based on battleships, so you each place all your ships and then take turns to try and hit the enemy ships. This one is a test of your patience, your memory, basically pairs. And this one is just checkers, as the name would suggest. This one is crazy. It's like tic-tac-toe, but times 10, or times 9. These games are all associated with flying, using the elytra. In this, you're essentially a dragon, and you have to fly around, collect supplies, and battle it out. In this, everywhere you fly, you leave a trail, and you basically have to try and trick other players into hitting your trail. Unfortunately, I didn't get any multiplayer footage of this game, so this is just showing off the single player target practice. But in multiplayer, one team is flying around and one team is trying to shoot them. This one's a bit like Dragon Wars, so you just have to fly around and ultimately try and kill each other. These games are all about trying to survive against the odds. In this game there are a random selection of natural disasters and you have to survive for a certain amount of time. Some of them are pretty crazy.
Oh my word, the whole world is turning to gold. Look at that!
This one's very similar to the last one. There are a bunch of natural disasters and players have to survive until time runs out. This one's like if Lost was in Minecraft. You're stranded on this tiny island and you have to, well, this isn't part of it, this was just funny. But you have to try and build a raft to escape by gathering resources and fending off these crazy mobs. It's pretty scary. In this one you have to survive the night by gathering firewood and stuff like that. I'll be honest, we didn't do very well. This next category is all about doing normal Minecraft mechanics fast. There are a couple of different versions of this game, including a manhunt mode, but essentially it's about finding items quickly, and the items are completely random. This one's all about digging down as fast as possible, so you have to pick the right block to dig through and try and get to the bottom. In this one you're in like a two-dimensional mine and you have to dig down, get resources, bring them back up, and then smelt them to convert them to points. In this one you're assigned a random item and you have to craft it as quickly as possible. And the music's pretty cool. All of these next games are about running around the map and picking up items. In this game you're collecting pumpkins and you have to bring them back to your base to score points, which you can then use to buy upgrades. In this game items spawn randomly around the map and you have to run around collecting them, but you can also kill each other to decrease the opponent's score. This game is set on a space station and you have to run around collecting emeralds to buy oxygen and supplies and ultimately kill each other. This category is for any sports themed games. Although this one has parkour in the name, I put it here because it's really more of a golf game. You have to hit the armor stands to get them into the goal. And this one actually is golf. You've got this little golf ball and you've got to hit it around the course. This one kind of reminds me of the ice hockey game from Spyro 2. You just have to hit the puck into the opponent's goal. This category is for games that are all about players fighting monsters. This is your classic wave-based combat. You're fighting waves of bees to get money or honeycombs to buy upgrades to kill more bees. Although why you'd want to kill these little bees, I have no idea. In this you pick a class and then use various abilities to defend a village from raiders. Best played with a few players. This is a space-themed shooter where you're going around some kind of space station and fending off whatever these things are. In this, waves of creepers will come and try and blow up these diamonds and you have to try and defend them. This is your classic rail shooter, so you are literally on a rail and you have to shoot things along the way. There's even a little story. This is another wave-based combat game, but in this one you're underwater, and it's pretty hard. There are loads of PvP games out there. This category is for the most classic ones, that is, the ones that don't fit into any other particular niche. In this game there are various different arenas, and you have to first of all not die, and secondly push your opponent off the edge. Similarly, in this game you're trying to push your opponent off the edge. You can use either ranged or melee. This is a PvP game with a very cool mechanic where you can clip into the ground to make a quick getaway or a surprise attack. And there's a couple of different game modes as well. This one is just your bog standard PvP arena. In this game, every time you kill someone, your weapon gets worse, until by the end it's just plain ridiculous. This is a sort of PvP / survival game, where the lava starts to rise after a certain amount of time. This game has 3 phases. First, you're accumulating coins by punching sheep. Next, you're spending your coins on gear, and finally, you have to try and kill each other. This category is for PvP games with a focus on ranged combat. In this game, you mine resources and then trade them for all kinds of crazy arrows which you can fire at the enemy team.
Oh! I'm nearly dead!
This is like a classic arena fight. You only need 1 shot to kill. In this game you build defenses and then you have to try and shoot each other, and every time you kill someone you gain territory. This is another fairly bog standard PvP game, but this time you're shooting fireworks. This one is again fairly standard, but your weapon is a fishing rod. This one is really crazy, as you can see. It's like a PvP arena, but everything's all black and white, so it's really hard to see people. In this game you're throwing snowballs at each other, and you've even got special abilities like making snowmen. I coined the term Conquest because I didn't really know how else to describe these games, but you know them when you see them. Typically you have a base and you have to find or buy upgrades and gear before you face your opponent. In this game you pick an entity, and each entity has a different ability, and your goal is to find the opponent's base and kill their entity. Similarly, in this game you accumulate resources, you have to buy gear, and ultimately kill your opponent's shulker to stop them respawning. However, the shop is a little bit clunky. This one is much the same. You have to build your way to your opponent and kill them, or die trying. This one's actually not so much about PvP, although it does use a lot of Conquest style mechanics. Basically you have to go and mine these meteors and bring them back to your base to score points. This is very similar to Shulker Wars, but the shop is a little bit more refined. This one is again very similar, although it's more about territory control. So there are control points around the map which you can capture. The more control points you have, the faster your score will increase. In this game you have to harvest gold and experience. You can spend the experience on upgrades, and the team with the most gold wins the game. This one is very similar to the others. Bridge across to your opponent, find gear, and fight it out. What makes this game a little different to the others is that you're in a cave and you have to dig towards each other. But other than that, the mechanics are similar. Find gear, kill each other. These are games that I think are designed specifically with big teams in mind. This is a capture the flag game between two teams, Egyptians and archaeologists. The map is pretty big, there are various items you can pick up, and you can even play against AI opponents. This is an attack defense game where there are various beacons around the map, and the attackers have to destroy these beacons to advance, while the defenders have to stop them. The map is huge, there are loads of different items and upgrades you can get. There's even a shop that you can access at any point, and an unlockable mine where you can accumulate resources.
Go, kill him! Kill him! I feel like I'm doing more work than my warrior is.
This category is for PvP games that use custom mechanics instead of the more traditional methods. This one is very similar to Wildfire and Knockback Madness. Don't ask me why they're in different categories, it's too late to change it now. The point is, this game is all about knocking people off the edge, but it also comes with a bunch of custom weapons and abilities that you can use. In this game, you have to keep jumping over this hole, otherwise you die. But the aim is to pull other players into the hole with a fishing rod. This game is very involved. There's different classes you can pick, and it's all about going into another dimension and capturing souls and then bringing them back to the spirit realm. This is kind of like Worms 3D or Hogs of War or something like that. You can only move on your turn, and you have to launch pufferfish at each other in order to kill each other. This is almost more of a strategy game. It's turn-based combat where each block has a different ability associated with it. In this game, explosive mobs spawn into the arena at random, and you've got to knock them into your opponent and try not to get blown up. This category is for Spleef games, which are all about destroying the ground under another player's feet. In this game you have all kinds of explosive abilities which you can use to spleef your opponent. In this one, every time you take damage, the blocks around you disappear, and there are all kinds of crazy power-ups that spawn around the map. In this game, wherever you throw your trident, the ground disappears, so you have to use that to get your opponent into the water. This is actually a whole bunch of different minigames within a minigame, but they're all kind of themed around destroying the ground or the ground disappearing. This is a pretty straightforward spleef game. You just destroy the ground with a pickaxe. These games all have a sort of party vibe, whatever that means. Build Party is all about building. So either one player builds something and the others have to guess what it is, or you compete to see who can build something the best, and the winning build even appears in the lobby afterwards. This is an assortment of loads of different minigames, where the lobby is this kind of dance floor environment, and when you play the games you earn credits, which you can then spend on like new themes for your dance floor. Again, this one has a bunch of different minigames inside of it, all with a Halloween theme. So there's this shooting gallery, and then there's this trick or treat game where you just have to knock on doors and hope that you don't get a witch. This is like some kind of game show where you get pitched all these crazy scenarios and you have to pick one and then do it. So for example, become a fan engineer, or play dodgeball, or survive a ghast apocalypse. And finally, we have all the games that don't really fit into any other category. In this game, you send missiles towards your opponent's shields, but the missiles are all these crazy redstone contraptions, and you can even ride on them to get nice and close. In this game, you play the role of a demolitions expert, and you have to strategically place TNT to blow up buildings and statues. This is like some crazy game show where you have to fit yourself through a hole in this moving wall. This is a really simple minigame where you just have to make sure you're on the right color when time runs out. In this game you have to levitate to the top of the arena and stand on this slime block to score points. But it's just crazy because this shulker's shooting you the whole time. And in this game you have to complete a puzzle as quickly as possible by rotating pieces. That is all of the games. Now, if you made it this far through the video, thank you so much for watching. And if you're not completely sick of my voice, I'm just going to ramble on for a little while and play some extra footage in the background. So first of all, if you liked the video, please consider subscribing. I'm trying to reach 5,000 subscribers, and this video honestly took me ages to make. Absolutely ages. And I've got to give a special shout out to Chris because he played virtually all of these minigames with me, so thank you so much, Chris. I couldn't have done it without you. Personally, I feel like Realms minigames are not really talked about, and clearly a lot of work has gone into making these. So I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Do you ever play these minigames? Do you have a favourite? Or is there one that particularly jumped out at you? Or maybe you're the creator of one of these minigames, in which case I'd love to hear how you found that process. I should also point out that I kind of lied in this video when I said I played all the games. There were a handful of games that just didn't work. We tried a bunch of times and they either wouldn't start or there were just some game-breaking glitches. And it doesn't help that halfway through recording this, 1.17 arrived and just straight up broke half the minigames. So a lot of them disappeared at that point in time. So some of the games that we've already recorded are no longer available. Some of them that I was going to record, we just couldn't, so because they're now gone. But if any of these games get fixed in the future, we can do another video and just show the ones that we couldn't show this time around. There's also so much more that could be said about each of the individual minigames. I mean, I showed them for like 5 or 10 seconds each, and that's really not long enough to do them justice. The point of this video was just to give a sort of basic summary of what the games are, but if it's something that you'd be interested in, one thing we could do is a much more in-depth video about some of our favourite games, for example. A lot of the minigames have extra maps, extra game modes, unlockable costumes, stuff like that I couldn't convey in this video, but the wealth of content is very impressive. Also, I was just really impressed to see what can be done in the Minecraft engine, because all of these are using vanilla Minecraft, there's no mods involved. It's all done through data packs and resource packs. If you're interested in knowing a bit more about how that works, I'll link to my data pack tutorial video in the top right corner, so feel free to check that out. Last but not least, I now have a Discord server, so if that's something that interests you, feel free to join. There'll be a link in the description. See you later!